Where's our money?
Motha Knows.
Motha knows.
Motha knows. Motha knows. Give us our money.
Right. Pay us.
Pay us.
Run me those funds.
Run it. Run me my check.
It's ridiculous that we're still having this conversation.
And I'm tired of it.
Yeah. And it's really heartbreaking for me because I work in an industry, DEI, organizational culture, you would think by now that we would not be having these conversations from the bottom all the way to the top,
right?
Yeah. And so for me, it's just a pattern that I think people are just choosing to ignore at this point.
Yeah.
So we know it's here, and it's just a lot of people wanted to stay there.
Yeah. Today we're talking about all the things, but really just like what Black women are facing in the industry, in the entertainment industry.
Yeah. Because it's more than just pay, right?
It is, but some recent interviews and some recent sound bites have taken on a life of their own, I would say, and have sparked some conversations. So we're gonna talk about it.
Yep.
So I think the first things first, we all probably know about Taraji P. Henson and her recent interview that she had.
Yeah.
She was on a press run for The Color Purple and was asked about her, I think she maybe had stated that she might be done with acting for a while or in general. And she was asked about it, and her response went on to talk about the fact that she's put in her time. She has made a name for herself, and she works hard, and she's working to get, pennies on the dollar.
Right.
From what her counterparts, her white male counterparts are getting. And so I think that's a conversation to be talked about.
And we know that just in typical corporate data, Black women get paid approximately, right, give or take 65 cents compared to a white man being paid $1. Right. So that's we're already talking about a significant pay gap. And I wonder if it's even worse in Hollywood because they get paid much more. I wonder if that gap is 50%, compared to 30 something percent.
I think it's way more. They talked about the Curious. What was the movie? Benjamin Button.
Oh yeah.
I think Brad
Pitt, did her thing in that movie.
Brad Pitt got I don't want to misquote it, but it was in the millions. And Taraji got 500,000.
500,000, yeah.
So right there.
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah.
But I think it might have been at least 10 million that he got.
Ooh, to 500?
5 to 10
now,
million.
Was that a newer role for her? Wasn't that a pretty new role for her?
But it was her breakout role where she was nominated for an Oscar from that role.
So definitely after that, we should not be having this conversation.
Right. Yeah. There are some factors. At that time, Brad Pitt had established himself as Brad Pitt.
Yep.
So there are factors at play there. But I think when we're talking about the gap and what it might look like, that's
okay. I get it. Yeah. And that percentage is way off.
Yeah.
And so before Taraji, we had Monique, right?
Yeah.
And when you think about the plight of the Black woman in general, but especially in a working environment, they have to deal with the pay gap. They have to deal with the power structure that tries to minimize and quiet them.
Right. Right.
And when Monique came out and spoke about it, and everyone could say, or a lot of people could say, it was a delivery. But here was a Black woman saying, I'm not getting paid what I'm worth. And they also want me to work for free.
Yeah.
And she had other communities and her community telling her to maybe just take it, maybe just be quiet, work for free.
Yeah.
Because you're still getting paid something.
I'm thinking about the interview she had with Steve Harvey where he was basically like, look, sis, I hear you. And she's like, behind closed doors, you are telling me I'm right. I hear you, sis.
Yeah.
I hear you, sis, but there's a way to do it. And any other conversation, when we're talking about social justice issues, for instance, when we're talking about, the plight of the Black man, when it comes to police brutality, any conversation like that, we always discuss the fact that I have no responsibility to my oppressor to respond a certain way, right?
Right.
But then when it comes to the Black woman responding, i.e. a Monique,
respond a certain way.
Your delivery is what we're losing. Why we're losing. And that's
the message.
Absurd.
Yeah. And so Steve Harvey, right? Whoopi Goldberg was another one that told her in so many words, like just
go along to get along.
accept it.
Right. This is the industry. This is what is expected.
Right. And just when you think about the opportunity we had to protect Monique, right? Because when you come out and you make a stand and you share information behind the scenes that we should know about, there's going to be backlash.
Right.
You're going to be blackballed and whatever. And there was an opportunity for people on her level to protect her. And that broke my heart because, I mean, she was literally left out to dry.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I think about the response that Monique got versus
compared to Taraji.
Cat Williams, who has now, recently come out and, shared some what he believes are truth to the world. And the different responses, even in the culture, even in the community, even in like just the audience itself. Black women are always met with, this is how you have to do it. This is how you have to look in order for your message to be received. And it's a frustrating wall to hit every time you have been wronged,
Yeah.
So I can only imagine for Monique what it felt like in that time, the Moniques of the world. Even, I mean, I'll venture to say Mariah Huck and Nene Leakes, when they had to go against Bravo, Bravo Network. There are some nuances to all of these different angles, but you still see it. You see them going against Bravo, nobody really supporting them, and then as soon as Bethany Frankel speaks out
and supports her or validates
the argument, now people in the mainstream are catching wind and actually listening. It's frustrating.
It's very frustrating. And even to go back, like prior to that, of course, like women before them that came before them, they're not getting paid anything. But I remember a Tina Turner interview, and this is Tina Turner.
Tina Turner, like icon, legend.
Icon. Like, are you serious? And she even said, she was like, I have to go over to Europe to get paid what I'm worth.
Yeah.
In America, it doesn't happen.
She moved over there, didn't she?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. So I mean, it's just a pattern that if the people that could change it were serious about changing it, it would have been changed a long time ago.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, like what the solution is and how we as Black women, Black men can kind of start to shift that dynamic. But again, working in that industry and having the same conversations over and over and over again with white executives about the data showing us that, number one, if you're just speaking about well-being, Black and brown people don't feel as appreciated, supported, valued in the organization.
Yeah.
Then you want to pay them less for the same roles.
But I think about too, the people who make it, quote unquote, in our community, who could do things to knock down barriers and knock down, the walls that are put in place for the people coming behind them. And it feels like, we know that Oprah and Tyler Perry were tied to the Monique Lee
Daniels,
were tied to the Monique issue. Oprah here is tied with Color Purple with Taraji. Those conversations keep happening, and the same power players who could affect change in some ways. And I'm not gonna say that they don't in other ways, because they employ so many Black
networks,
folks. They own networks.
Yeah.
There are ways in which they make maybe waves in other areas. And maybe that is to make themselves feel better about the fact that you have to take some hits in order to be where you are, in order to open the door. So you have to be strategic in some ways. But I do wish, when it came to the pay gap, that is something that we all know it exists,
right?
And we all have a responsibility to try to fix.
Yeah.
And so I do wish on that front they would be a little bit more vocal.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about just what Black women give to society, right? So we're the most educated. So we're degreed up.
Degreed up and down.
So the most educated, right? The fastest growing demographic of entrepreneurs consistently since 2019.
Yep.
Like, we're talking about 2.7 million businesses that we created
since 2019.
Yeah. Yep. Again, for me, it feels like an intentional dynamic when you have such a brilliant group of people that could allow any organization to flourish if they're just leveraged, right? Like leveraged an opportunity, leveraged with pay, leveraged with positions of power, it has to be intentional at this point. And going back to Cat Williams, he made a prominent statement that when you look at his staff, 75% of his staff are women.
I love that. Yeah.
And so you have, again, another brilliant man understanding the power of surrounding himself and building his company up with women
that are,
we know how to get it done.
Right. Like multitasking to the multitasking.
Right. And I think in a more fluid way.
Fluid, strategic, dare I say sweet, like we just have an essence
palpable
about us.
Right? Like we just know how to get things done in a palpable way.
Right. We have an essence and aura, that can't be denied when it comes to business.
Right.
So, to your point, I think Kat gave a good example of a solution to that. When we have these men, Black men specifically in places of power, making sure that your staff looks like Black women,
like your sister, like your mother, like your aunt, like your daughters,
and that you're being more than fair to them when it comes to their skill set, the knowledge they bring, give them their just due and pay.
Yeah. Because you have a society where when it's time to talk about the Black woman's, physique, and it's time to objectify her, and it's time to appropriate her, like all of these things that society,
does to the Black woman,
to our very essence. Again, it's like it's so layered. It's not just pay. It's not just like even our bodies. Our bodies, the essence of who we are, is something that we have to fight to protect every day.
Every day. And I mean, and this dates back to the continent, right?
Yeah.
But, when the first settlers came and saw our physiques and, that gaze on the Black body has always been there, from the Sarah Barnums of the world to, to now we're talking about Halle Bailey,
and how
she has had to, congratulations to her, but how she has had to navigate a pregnancy where people are just picking her apart. Even when Kiki
like when in Kiki, it was okay. She had this baby. Homegirl is snatched, looking like a goddess. And she's doing too much.
Right.
Like you're a mom. You should cover up.
You should cover up. No, she is a woman.
Celebrating her
body.
She's a woman
owning
first.
Who she is. And not for nothing, going through pregnancy and then coming back, finding out who you are after it is a feat in itself. So when you have a woman who has stepped out and owned who she is now in this new package, the last thing you want to do is try to tear it down.
So it's an interesting dynamic when you have a minority group, men and women, right? We're catching it from both sides.
Right.
Each group has their challenges,
their
right, in society. What I will say is, women are such nurturers that when we see our male, counterparts, our brothers going through something, it's instinct for us to want to stand up and shield them. Right. And I don't know what the mindset is that it appears that it might not happen as much on platforms where it's very visible. I do think on like a day-to-day, I think it happens more than we give it credit for.
I
but
agree.
On bigger platforms, how do we shift that mindset to say, okay, we really need y'all to speak up,
Right.
And just protect women.
And it has to be overt.
It can't be subliminal.
Because the mindset and the notion out in society is it appears to be that there isn't as much speaking up and being vocal on those bigger platforms. We have to, as a group, especially Black men, and I'm putting that call out. Especially Black men have to be more overt, more intentional, louder, about it, so that it counteracts the thought that it's not happening. Because like you said, we know that on a day-to-day, our men show up for us, right? And in any group, there's a sector that just need to get it together. You know what I mean?
Well,
but by and large, we have support, I think.
Yeah. By and large, we have support. And what I will say is, I do think it, goes beyond just Black men, right? Like,
for sure,
women have had to fight for their voice in this country,
right,
in other countries, right? But we're at a place economically that we just can't afford to not have that unified front. And I think that's where it's like when you have that harder glaze, first of all, we're going to have that hard glaze on it because we're Black. We're Black women. And so we want to hear from Black men. We can't afford not to be unified. And so we have to figure out a way to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. And going back to, the Halle Baileys of the world, I think I applaud her for doing what she felt was necessary and right for not only herself but for her unborn child. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like
that has to be
y'all
hard.
Gonna know when I want
it.
you to know.
Right, right. And it's not necessarily that I'm hiding it. It's just that I just don't feel the need to share the information.
When I feel like sharing it, I'll share it.
Right. So
until then, crickets.
I'm giving you what I give you. You surmise what you're going to surmise, but I'm not going to tell you.
Yes, anything. I know you can see my little bump.
Right, and I don't care. I'm not
I don't have to validate it for you.
Right. I have chosen not to speak on it, and that's that. So so for someone to be 23 in an industry where
23?
She may have turned 24.
Really? I don't know. I thought they were like not much older, but a little bit older.
I think she's only 23-ish.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But for someone to be that age and, that bold and sound in her decision, I applaud her for that. Because in an industry where people feel like they have an entitlement to everything there is to know about you, it probably is hard to navigate that, especially she essentially got pregnant during like
the mermaid time.
Right, the height of her like coming out.
Yeah, the press around
coming out to the world as an actor, or actress. So that can't be easy.
I gotta clap for her though, because she handled that so masterfully.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't even know why we would have doubted any other way, because she handled the criticism for Little Mermaid so masterfully. Coming out with her song after. We're not really speaking on it heavily, but coming out with her song. And just really like owning that experience. I think she's a force to be reckoned with. I mean, Black women in general are forces to be reckoned with. So I do think that we will figure it out when it comes to the pay gap, when it comes to the unnecessary gaze of the Black body, the Black woman's body. I think that the protection, right? Yeah. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, I think we will. And I feel like, again, we are taking some of those steps. So it's not to say that, we're not starting to shift that tide, because again, like when you have Black women growing business at such an alarming rate consistently, I think that we'll start to shift that dynamic.
And when I see that statistic, all I hear in my head is, I could do my own thing. I can make my own moves. I'm going to create my own destiny. I'm done with corporate. Here's my business. You know what I mean? Like, that's a part of the solution.
That's
a
big part of it.
So Black women being the fastest demographic of entrepreneurs, that is a solution. That is us being like, look, if they're not going to do it for us, I'm going to do it for myself.
And even if we don't see it like right now, right, while we're building our children
and our children's children.
And children's children.
Our legacy. That's what we're doing for them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because we're not begging anymore.
Nah. Like, no.
It's ridiculous.
I'm not wasting my breath.
And it's not even heard, again, in the ears that can really shift it in a monumental way.
True.
It's not heard.
That's true.
From experience, again, it's not heard at the level it needs to be heard.
Yeah, because they're off in the sunset on their yacht.
And then again, if you have the power, right? If you're in the position of power, are you just willingly going to shift it so everything's equal? Like, let's just think about the human, pathology.
How we navigate. Right.
So
dog eat dog world.
Y'all better read your Sun Tzu's Art of War,
right,
and understand.
Exactly.
Build those businesses.
Yeah. And let's protect each other.
Okay.
All day, every day. Motha Knows. Instagram is at Motha_knows, and
TikTok, it's Motha Knows Code.
Yep. Thank y'all. Subscribe, like, comment, share, all that good stuff.
Let's go.
Bye.
Bye.